Hello everyone, I'm Box, and welcome to my new series, Memory Lane Mondays, or MLMs for short. Never mind. Anyway, this will hopefully be a simple, slightly lower quality set of YouTube videos in which I discuss some old things which bring back nostalgia and fond, or not so fond, memories. Let's just hope my attention span stays and that I keep this going, because knowing me, it probably won't. This episode, or technically the next few episodes, will share the same topic split into 4 parts. Undertale Fanfictions. More specifically, self-insert Undertale Fanfictions. Because escapism is a thing. So, let's get right into it. The main website I used to read fanfiction on was Quotev, which will be the source for all the fanfictions discussed. The list of fanfictions I'll be reading goes as follows. Heartstrings, an Era Sans X reader. The Burden of Feelings, a Nightmare Sans X reader. Trapped, and Stuck With You, both of which feature a variety of AU Sans love interests. You might be noticing my weird selection of romances, and no, I have nothing to say for myself. Not that I need to defend my choices, I can date whoever I want, whether it's a regular guy or a supervillain goop skeleton who will choke me to death at whatever chance he gets. Let's start with the shortest and easiest of the 4, Heartstrings. Heartstrings is an Era Sans X reader fanfiction first posted to Quotev on May 25, 2020, and finished on August 29th of that same year. The pandemic gave us all a boost of creative juices, I can tell, for better or for worse. It was mainly written by Bones and Quills, but someone by the name of the Queen helped write a vague plot for it. I'll be linking to each author's profiles in the description, as some of them are still writing to this day, and there may be someone who enjoys their work. I know I still enjoy some of these stories, despite not being so deep in the Undertale fandom anymore. The description of this story goes as follows. Error X Reader. You're an outcode, one who has lived outside the AUs for a long time. Your best friend is a skeleton named Ink, and your enemy is a glitched out, world-destroying skelly named Error. You hate him, hate the way he destroys AUs and entire worlds. But somehow, he's tugged your heartstrings. Essentially, it's a basic enemies to lovers story featuring 3 main characters. HUION, the protagonist, Error, the love interest, and Ink, the other guy. In case you didn't realize, this is a weird love triangle. Just letting you know, because things only get weirder from here. We start with HUION, who I'll be calling Ian from now on, describing her past. She was rescued from Mafia Tail by Ink a long time ago, and she's been working with him ever since. They're best friends, but Ink has never let her go on a mission with him. Until now, yay! Which really just means she'll be left alone without Ink because he's stupid and left his head unscrewed at home. We then meet our wonderful love interest Error, and Ian just destroys him in their first fight. She disintegrates his shoulder and he immediately leaves, which just... Oh my god, girl, how can you handle the immortal destroyer of worlds, but spoiler alert, as soon as a random demon kid appears, you nearly die. Despite her having almost turned him to dust, Error is instantly head over heels for her. Okay, that might be an exaggeration, but this story moves faster than a bullet train. I just skimmed the story in one day and got thrown in every direction. If you see something weird in the sky, please send help. Moving on, Ian starts showing her chronic cretin syndrome when she asks Ink to go to Horrortail. Ink obviously says no and tells her to go to Outertail instead, to which Ian replies by stepping into a random portal and somehow ending up in that very same universe. Seems fate truly does exist. We are introduced to Outer Sounds before immediately moving on to the much more important Error, who threatens to throw Ian over the cliff and into the spatial void below, and frankly, that's how all guys should treat their crushes in the future. If they don't do it, then I will. Ian is confused when Error spares her, but quickly goes back to Ink, who gives her a scarf as a gift. She kisses him on the cheek, and it is officially confirmed that Ink's in love with her, right after we find out that Error is also down bad for Crazy Lady. After this, Ian and Error start to hang out in Outertail, with Outer telling Ink about it. Ink is suspicious, but Ian says it's fine, and of course she kisses the genocidal maniac the first chance she gets. Outer, of course, witnesses this and tells Ink, because that's what any rational friend would do. Ink is pissed, Ian shoves him when he tries to talk to her and causes his skull to crack. She runs away instead of apologizing, and Outer hides her from the wrong man. This is an issue I have with enemies to lovers stories in general, which I'll discuss further later, but Outer immediately says that he shouldn't have told Ink about her kissing Error, and that he should have minded his own business. Realistically, Error is akin to a war criminal, if not literally being one. He commits genocide on multiple universes, which is like killing every living organism mixed with an added 100,000 or so monsters on this Earth several times. He's not a good person, and he does nothing to disprove that in his story. I'm not saying this is a bad story romanticizing serial killers, that's just stupid, but it does make the story a little less believable when everyone around Ian starts to excuse Error's murders just because she loves him and claims he's a good guy deep down. If you want to know the exact details of the plot, you can go read the fanfiction yourself. It's only 59 pages long, and despite the number of times I and the author regretted our life choices during it, the story is not that bad. It's a fanfiction, and a shorter one at that. It's not going to be a goldmine of professional level writing, and no one should expect it to be. I may be poking fun at it, but I mean no disrespect to the author. This is all just for entertainment purposes, and I hope no one takes this too seriously. I will add a little extra context though. Over the course of the story moving forward, Ian gives Ink the cold shoulder multiple times and never properly apologizes for hurting him. This results in what can only be described as a mental breakdown, as Ink continuously gets told by multiple sources that he's being jealous and should let Ian go if he truly loves her, despite her, from a sane point of view, being in potential danger. This makes him stop using his vials, which are what give him emotions, and he goes completely blank. Eventually, he teams up with Error and Nightmare, who is also here for some reason, when Dream and Blue kidnap Ian to save her from Error, believing that she's in danger, and rightfully so. Error proves his love for her by kissing her, and everything is fine, just fluff from here on out. Except for the demon child. But that's a short conflict, and I don't care enough to go into it. I'd much rather move on to my very simple analysis of the story and my conclusion. There's not much to analyze in this story. It's hardly over 50 pages, as some of the chapters are simply author's notes, but I do want to discuss the whole enemies to lovers trope in more detail. As the name suggests, this trope involves two characters who start out as enemies, but eventually fall in love. It's a common genre in fanfiction alongside the much more innocent friends to lovers, and enemies to lovers is a trope that you likely either love or hate. I personally am not the biggest fan of it, but that's mostly because it's not handled well in stories, at least not in my opinion. It's much easier to write two enemies falling in love if they are, say, competitive rivals in school or work or something else that doesn't involve actual evil. But in the case of Heartstrings and many other romance fanfictions, one of the enemies in question is a murderer, criminal, or other form of villain, while the other is the hero who tries to stop them from causing harm. Error-Sans's morality may be contested by the fandom at large, but in the context of this story and the characters, he's a god who has committed and continues to commit mass genocide on multiple worlds, with his initial motivation being that they are different or glitches, and his later explanation being a voice in my head told me to do it. These are both invalid arguments, with the first being hypocritical as he's a glitch himself, and the second being completely unbelievable. And yes, I know I'm implying that Undertale fanfictions have some level of believability in general, but I'll explain. The whole voices in your head telling you to kill people idea is realistic, but it's unrealistic in the way it's handled. The majority of people with such intrusive thoughts won't do what their brain tells them to do. Rather, they are far more likely to be completely harmless, even more so than those without these thoughts. Someone committing illegal acts because of a voice in their head may make their actions more understandable, but that doesn't mean they have zero responsibility for what they've done, especially if they don't go on to prove themselves and take accountability. In the case of Error, this is particularly true. When Ian asks him if he's tried not listening to the voices, he gives an unclear answer, and he goes on to quickly resort to violence in any situation. When Ink insults Ian and Error's past love, he immediately attacks Ink and threatens to kill him. Admittedly, Ink should not have said this. I'm not defending that action, but your first response shouldn't be to resort to violence, especially not violence so extreme that you are on the verge of murder. Maybe I'm just a huge pacifist, but it seems that Error refuses to change, and is unlikely to change even after the events of this book. This makes the fact that the people who oppose Error are treated as the paranoid ones much more iffy. The author had to make an entire chapter on why Outer isn't the bad guy for telling Ink about kissing Error, because some readers, who sound rather young or otherwise naive in my opinion, think that he should have kept his mouth shut because it was none of his business. The mistake is not in the plot itself, but rather how the issue of Error being a villain is presented. Granted, the story is too short to give Error a proper arc to redeem himself, and it's much harder to write a slow burn book with deep character development than it is to write a simple fanfiction where everything goes mostly smoothly. To clarify, again, I'm not blaming the author for not picking the latter route, and I am not trying to make the story look problematic. I'm talking about the enemies to lovers trope as a whole and how it can make for more unrealistic, less enjoyable stories. I genuinely enjoyed this book when I first read it, and looking back on it now I can see why. I was always a sucker for bad boys, even if that meant literal murderers, and I used to crush on the significantly worse Nightmare Sans, and I continue to fall in love with fictional villains all the time. The story was a fun read even now, and if you want something to unwind to, a world to escape to, or you're just crushing on our resident walking Windows Vista, this is the book for you. I'll be leaving a link down in the description for anyone who's interested. Anyway, that was certainly an interesting ride. Again, I know I'm clowning on this book a little, but I mean no ill will, and I do think the author is a good writer, with some of their work since then being a lot better, though they haven't posted in a long time. Still, consider supporting them on Quotev in the off chance they grow active again. I hope you enjoyed my commentary and the background speed paint. I made an A4 fan cover for Heartstrings and it took me an excessively long time, especially since I had to design YN on my own without making her design too specific and unrelatable. I hope you enjoyed. Stick around for a special message as I plug my other socials. Thank you so much for watching! If you want to see more of my art, please go check out my Instagram at BoxDaydreams or my toy house at BoxDreams to see some written content as well. I'm working on an adoptable batch, so stick around there if you're interested. I'm also available for hire on CCC for voice acting, art, and writing, and all other social media links are in my YouTube bio. I also want to give a huge thanks to everyone who interacted with my video on the game Clan Gen. I never expected my subscriber and viewer counts to grow so suddenly, and I am especially grateful to everyone who commented all those kind words. I'm very unsure of myself when it comes to my art, commentary, and everything in general, to be honest, so I'm really glad so many people enjoy my content. This video is subpar compared to what I'd like to publish in the future, but I hope you liked it anyway. I'll try to post the next Clan Gen video update and that animation I'm working on soon. Though I can't guarantee anything, this school year is particularly busy, and I'm just, it's not my priority really. But anyway, this has been Box, signing out.